Oh, you want cheap? I got you, bro. Welcome back to the Drone Camps channel. Today, guys, we're going to check out something new from a company that I haven't seen in quite some time. This is the G-Lang CUDA 85X. It is a new 3S Cinewhoop that is dirt cheap. It is running off of a 3S, say 850, all the way down to something like a 450 milliamp. It has crossfire on here, and it's also analog for you analog guys. I know there's a lot of you guys out there right now. A majority of my guys are analog still. We have tons of TPU stuff on here, and today we're sporting the Runcam 4K edition. This is the Runcam Thumb Pro on here today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take this little dirt cheap Cinewhoop outside and give it a little backyard thrashing. What do you say? Here we go. Let's do some flying. All right, I'm going to give you some feedback on my flight test with it. We're running the Runcam Thumb Pro 4K in the full screen, and then on the top left you can see the Runcam Nano 2 analog video DVR from my Sky Zones. Those are my favorite daily driver goggles still after years and years. They just work, and they have built-in receiver, and they're great. But so far, the first thing that I noticed on this particular Cinewhoop was that it felt really nice and loose on the acro controls. The tune was nice and loose. So what does that mean? Well, I'm not flying stability right here. It's just pure acro. So it seems like it's quite fast and twitchy, and that's because it can be at a higher speed. If you want to tilt that camera up, I have mine tilted up pretty high at about 20 degrees on this Cinewhoop, and I'm able to get some pretty good speed through the backyard. But man, that Runcam Pro Thumb looks just freaking beautiful out there in the backyard right now with the flowers and everything. The colors look great. And again, if you want to slow down, speaking of fast and slow, here's my slow example through the trees. Hit that last piece of scraggle there, but you can go back and do it again. You can tilt the camera down to get super, super slow. If you were looking for that real estate footage, that's the way to do that. So let's go ahead and take off now. Let's do some flips and rolls and see how it handles some flips and rolls with the 4K camera on there. So I see a little bit of tumble right there, a little bit of kickback from the flight controller, but I was able to recover no problem. Here on a flip, it kind of leveled back out kind of funny, like the flight controllers kind of overcompensate. Maybe the PIDs are just a little bit high on this tune, and sometimes I'll go back and turn things down so that things smooth out quite a bit for you. And if I get this one tuned, I'll share this with the community. But through the dark spots in the yard as well, I feel like the Thumb Pro does pretty good from dark to light transition. And today I probably could have used like an Indy 16. I went with the 8 because it hasn't been quite this sunny for quite a few days, but there's a forward facing hit and no damage on this quad. Not the camera, the Thumb Pro, no damage at all. And that's the thing about this particular Cinewhoop. Honestly, it's so light, you're probably not going to damage it too easy unless you're just one of those dudes. And I happen to be one of those dudes. Very nice little loop around the Concord grapes right there, back underneath the playground set. And you can switch directions pretty fast with this drone. And now here's another example, just going a little bit slower, doing some really close-in proximity pass through here with the trees, and back out into the bright light. Not a lot of change on that Thumb Pro camera. Light to dark transitions really, really good. And here I just wanted to take it up for a dive, and I was in such a good spot here in this full dive. I turned around, I thought I had it, and I'm right into the grapes. So that ends our flight test. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let's go ahead and check it out on the bench. Welcome back from the flight test. It's been a minute since we had an analog quad on the channel, but we did have the Nano fly a while back last week. But here we are with another analog quad. And you know what? Analog's not dead. The majority of you guys still fly analog. And the nice thing about analog is
The VTX doesn't need an update, and it never has a forced update where it's going to not let you take off before you update it. It's just going to plug into your analog goggles and work. So the great thing about this little miniature backyard 4K cinema rig that I have here is that the batteries are cheap. The parts are cheap. If you're not like a Geprc type of person, you can't afford that type of quad, this is $150, and you can put whatever type of camera that you want on it. They suggest the thumb, the original Runcam thumb on here. It's a little bit lighter than this one, but you don't get the 4K option like you do with this camera. So this one also has gyro assisted stability on it as well, integrated into it. So it's a little bit smoother than something like the original thumb, which I still think is a great camera. They also make a decase version of that camera as well that I have here, and it also has an option for an ND filter, which I love, and this is the decase version of the thumb. This also comes with the smaller mount here, and this comes with a mount already on it, so you can put pretty much any type of smaller mount on this quad and go out and shoot cinema. I think that's a lot of fun. So this is the polarizer that goes on this camera, and completely decased. You can also get this TPU mount for it as well, but I believe that the TPU case cover comes along with this camera. But super cool. We have a 200 milliwatt VTX on here. We have an F4 flight controller. We have 2-inch quad blade props on here. We have inverted motor design and around a 1.5 to 2 mil top plate carbon 3K carbon fiber here, running these inverted motors. And the benefit of inverted motors, if you don't know it, it's going to fly a lot smoother than some of the upwards facing motors for specifically for cinema video. So if you wanted to use this for some type of real estate fly through and put it in stability mode, this thing would rule the pool with a Runcam 4K on here. So Thumb Pro is the name of that camera again. And if we look at these motors a little bit closer up, we have pretty nice size motors for freestyle or cinema. 1202 8700 kV motors, and I like these anodized gold top bells on these motors. They have 3 Phillips head bolts holding them in. So if you're brand new to FPV, this one does come with a little mini screwdriver, and you can pretty much take this whole quad apart with a little Phillips head screwdriver. There's not a lot of, if any, M2 hardware. There's one piece back here holding the VTX on. There's 2 bolts actually holding the VTX, the 200 milliwatt VTX on. We also have a medium size antenna coming off the back. It's not a long, it's not a stubby, but a medium is nice because it gets it above that penetration range. So if you have a short stubby on the back here, it's just going to limit your signal coming back to your goggles. So it's nice that they made this tall enough to clear all of this stuff down here, because this has a lot of RF down here when you're flying. So they also put TPO shroud around the flight controller, F4 flight controller with 12 amp ESCs, and 12 amp, if you don't know it, that's going to run about 2 to 3S battery. If you're brand new, start out with a 2S 450 or a 550 battery on this without a camera and learn how to fly FPV. Move up to 3S a little bit later, and you're going to have tons of power. And also on the bottom, we have a TPU bumper. And this bumper is going to allow it to kind of bounce on the concrete without tearing up the quad. And you also have USB access underneath this quad right here. That's going to plug you straight into Betaflight. Underneath this carbon plate is also where my Crossfire Nano sits. And I just ran my wire out the back right here, a couple zip ties, and it has holes for zip ties in this back mount, which I also think is pretty nice. The other thing that I did notice about this quad, guys, is the fact that it does come with the foam bumper around already on this quad. So that's how mine came in the box. And I like this thin bumper design. They really shave this down a lot. So normally the ducks are a little bit cheap, like a little bit thicker and deeper, not cheaper, a little bit thicker. So the first thing that I noticed out of the box was that definitely has a thin profile and very lightweight little quad. So much lighter than some of the other Cinewhoops at the 2-inch level, especially lighter than the Flex that came out recently from SpeedyB. And again, this is not an HD one. but still, I had just as much fun as I had with the Flex as I had with this one. We have the XT30 connector wire back here, and this one is pretty long. Actually, it seems to be kind of an extended cable, so you can kind of crank it around and do different things with it. It's not too short, it's not locked into the frame, which I love. And also came with two different power cables coming off this F4 flight controller. We have a GoPro, decased GoPro cable, and one for the thumb. So I was able to plug in either or of those without having to do any soldering, which I really liked a lot. So they thought about you guys running decased cameras on there, and that's pretty much the point of this quad. Now, this little quad on the scale is way under the FAA's registration or remote ID requirements. It's coming in with the 4K camera on there at 96 grams. If you want to add the smallest battery, I'm going to suggest the 450 on here. This is a 3S 450. That's only going to get you up to 138 grams. So this is a super lightweight quad, and my heaviest battery of choice for cinema and a 4K camera from Runcam is going to get you up to a total of 153 grams with a 3S 650 milliamp. So you still have room to run something like a 3S 850 milliamp on here and still be way under 250 grams. And again, if you're looking for something that's under 250 grams and you're on a budget, you don't have a lot of money to spend, G-Lang stuff is always way cheaper than iFlight or Geprc. So if you are that guy, this is one of the ones to pick up. The parts are dirt cheap. They also give you a mount in there for what looks like an Insta360 Go 2. So I like this kind of like bright yellow neon looking TPU mounts that they give along with this quad. I felt like everything worked nicely, just like a lot of Geprc stuff. I would say 2 years ago, G-Lang would be a company that I'd kind of avoid. And it seems that they work through their flight controller issues, some of the motor issues, and just manufacturing issues in general, and making sure that QC was high enough for the community that they finally got somewhere in 2022 that we can bind up, fly, and trust out of the box. It's not going to just be like some of the cheaper Eachine stuff that just doesn't work from the get-go. This one did good for me. I'd say freestyle, it's a mild freestyle quad. I would say the tune is good on here, but with the extra weight of this camera on there, it gave me a little bit of kind of kickback on some of the flips and rolls. So I think the gains might be a little bit high. I could probably go in and turn down some of the PIDs for you to make it a little looser. But then again, it's not really like a freestyle machine. It would be a quad that you can take. It's light enough that you can learn acro with it, and it's not going to break a lot of stuff. So if you wanted to use it as an acro trainer or as some type of little backyard cinema rig with a 4K camera on it, there's tons of options. Or if you want to even use it professionally as an indoor real estate fly-through machine, this would absolutely do that. You could use some onboard stabilization and in conjunction with your editor using something like Real Steady, you'd come home with some pro video with something this small. So it's a nice, lightweight, small, and fun little rig. And it's also ready on the website, TBS Crossfire or an ELRS receiver. So either way you want to go, you can bind it up for some little bit longer range, or you can keep it close. They also have an option for a FreeSky XM Plus receiver. So 3 of the most popular receivers ready on this one. So you can check out the CUDA X5 or the A5X in the link down below. Use my code. It's BG Davis 2022, and that'll save you 8% off of one of these if you want to grab one. But I appreciate you guys watching. Please do like and comment and subscribe on the video. Click the notification bell for when the new videos come out, because we have new stuff coming out all week long. And I appreciate you again. Thanks for hanging, and I will see you on the next one, family. Bye-bye.